You touch your nose without thinking about it. You shift your feet under the table. You take a small breath before you answer a question you weren't ready for. You don't notice any of it, but your brain does it on purpose. Every single day, your body is leaking information you never agreed to share. And the strangest part is this: the lie itself isn't what gives you away. Your body's reaction to telling it is. What is actually happening when you stretch the truth? Think about the last time someone asked you a question you didn't want to answer honestly. Maybe it was small. Where were you last night? Did you eat the last slice? Did you mean to send that message? Your mouth started forming an answer before your mind had even finished deciding what the answer would be. That gap, that half second of static, is where the real story lives. Researchers have spent decades trying to catch that gap on camera. Paul Ekman, a psychologist who spent much of his career studying facial expression, found something that surprised even him. People don't lie with their whole face. They lie with parts of it. A genuine smile pulls at muscles around the eyes that almost no one can fake on command. A polite, performed smile only moves the mouth. Ekman called the eye muscles involved the orbicularis oculi, which is simply the ring of muscle wrapped around your eye socket. You don't control it consciously. It only fires when the feeling underneath is real. So when someone smiles and their eyes stay flat, something doesn't match. But faces are only the beginning. Your body has older, deeper alarms than your expressions. Go back further than any courtroom, any interrogation room, any awkward conversation at a dinner table. Go back to a forest, tens of thousands of years ago, where your ancestors lived in small groups that depended completely on trust to survive. In that world, deception wasn't just rude. It was dangerous. A group that couldn't detect a liar could be tricked out of food, mates, or safety. So evolution didn't just shape your moral instincts. It shaped your nervous system to react to the act of deceiving someone else. Here's the strange part. Lying activates the same threat response as physical danger. Your sympathetic nervous system, the part of you responsible for fight or flight, doesn't know the difference between a predator in the bushes and a question you're trying to dodge. Both register as risk. Both raise your heart rate. Both increase sweat production, particularly in your palms and the soles of your feet, areas dense with sweat glands that evolved to improve grip during a sprint or a climb. This is the entire premise behind the polygraph, invented in the early 20th century by John Augustus Larson. The machine doesn't detect lies directly. It detects the body's stress signature, the same signature that once helped your ancestors survive an ambush, now triggered by something as small as a half-truth about where you really were. Of course, the polygraph is famously unreliable. Why? Because stress and deception aren't the same thing. You can feel intense stress while telling the complete truth, especially if you're scared no one will believe you. And a practiced liar can learn to suppress the very signals the machine is built to catch. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the body's signals can be faked, trained away, or triggered by something other than lying, what are we actually detecting? This is where the science gets genuinely strange. Researchers eventually realized that the most useful signals weren't the dramatic ones people expect, like sweating or refusing eye contact. The most reliable signals were small inconsistencies, gaps between what someone says and how their body moves while they say it. A landmark study led by psychologist DePaulo, who reviewed over 100 different experiments on deception, found that liars don't actually avoid eye contact more than honest people. That's a myth most of us still believe. What liars actually do, on average, is speak in vaguer terms, include fewer specific details, and take slightly longer to begin answering, especially when the question catches them off guard. In other words, the lie doesn't show up in dramatic body language. It shows up in hesitation, in simplicity, in an answer that sounds rehearsed because, somewhere in your mind, it is. Here's where your ancestors come back into the picture. Specific sensory detail, the kind that makes a story believable, requires you to actually retrieve a memory. Real memories come loaded with texture. The smell of the room, the exact words someone said, the way light hit a window. A fabricated story doesn't have that texture because there was never an experience to draw it from. Your brain has to construct it from scratch, in real time, while also monitoring whether you're being believed. That's an enormous cognitive load. Researchers call this cognitive burden, and it's one of the most consistent predictors of deception across cultures and contexts. This explains something you've probably felt without realizing why. Lying is exhausting. Even small lies. Even ones that don't matter much. Because you're not just saying false words, you're running two processes simultaneously, the false story and the part of you tracking whether the false story is working. Your ancestors needed this same tracking system, just aimed in a different direction. They needed to watch other people's faces, postures, and voices closely enough to know who could be trusted with food, with secrets, with their children. That hyper-attentiveness to inconsistency didn't disappear. It just turned inward the moment you started needing to deceive someone yourself. So if your body is this loud about lying, why do people get away with it constantly? Because most of us are terrible at reading the signals, even though we think we're good at it. A widely cited study found that people, including trained professionals like police officers and judges, perform only slightly better than chance at detecting lies from behavior alone. Slightly better than chance, despite confidence levels that suggest otherwise. Why the disconnect? Because we're looking for the wrong cues. We expect liars to look nervous, avoid eye contact, fidget. But skilled liars know this too, sometimes unconsciously, and overcorrect by holding eye contact a little too long, sitting a little too still. The truth is messier than a checklist of tells. It's the mismatch between words and pacing, between detail and vagueness, between the story and the tiny silences around it, that actually carries information. Which brings us back to you, sitting somewhere right now, maybe holding your phone, thinking about that small lie you told someone today. The one about why you were late. The one about how you really feel about something. The one you told so automatically you almost forgot you told it. Your body remembers, even if your conscious mind doesn't. Somewhere in that moment, your pulse ticked up slightly. Your sentence got a little shorter than it needed to be. Your hand found something to hold or touch. None of that makes you a bad person. It makes you a human nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do, tens of thousands of years after the world that built it disappeared. Tonight, when you tell even the smallest lie, your body will do the same thing it always does. It will brace, however slightly, for the risk your ancestors once faced for real. You'll never notice it happening, but it always does.